Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch B522. Does this bad boy stack up to A122? Only one way to find out. Let's do this. No, seriously, let's do this. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. So really excited to do today's review of the newest release from Elijah Craig, the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch B522. So again, as most of you guys know, we nitpicked the heck out of this thing, but I wanted to give it a fair shake. I opened it when I first got it, let it sit, tried it a couple other times, and now we're at about 3 weeks of it being open. So I think it's been given maybe a fair amount of time open to kind of see if this thing's going to really kind of live up to what the A122 I felt had to offer. So let's go ahead and dive into today's review. Color-wise, as you can see, beautiful mahogany kind of color, pretty typical of what you normally see with the Elijah Craig Barrel Proofs. So very oily. I mean, as I move it around the glass, really nice oils on the glass. So, all right, let's dive into the nose. So for me on this one, on the nose right away, it leads a little bit more of that sweet oak forward. In addition to some of those more leathers and tobaccos, those are the initial thoughts I get. What you'll then kind of pick up a little bit, or what I'm picking up, is this kind of light cherry note. It's not dominant or as dominant as some prior batches, but there is kind of this like lighter, maybe dark fruit, more specifically kind of cherry note that's there. Still do get some of that like rich vanilla custard, still a little bit muted, not again as dominant as other batches were. And something that I haven't really gotten on many or any other things is this coconut cream pie aspect to it. There's just something that's jumping out to me with a little bit of like a coconut aspect to it on that. Very, very interesting. I will say there is this touch or hint of like espresso or like a roasted coffee bean as well. Still nice brown sugars. It's not super dominant, but there are those kind of toasted or burnt sugars that are there. Touch of a black pepper. Not super heavy on the pepper, but again, there is a little bit of that pepper aspect to it. And then something else like I was getting early on was that sweet oak. Now I'm getting a little bit more of that kind of like wet, musty or dusty oak presence that's there to it. It's a little bit on the kind of, I don't want to say bitter, but there's this, that kind of funky wood note that's there on this one. Do get some nice cinnamons, maybe some nice nutmegs, not overpowering or overly dominant. I do get a little bit of an herbal characteristic, and usually I relate that to like a black or like a green tea. There's just that kind of herbal, maybe earthy aspect to it. Again, it's a really nice nose. It's not overly sweet. It's pretty well balanced, but it's not leaning heavy in one particular direction for me. So more importantly, let's dive into the palate. Let's see how that kind of shakes out. For me, it has a lot to live up to against the A122. I was a huge fan of that release. So we'll see exactly how the 522 shakes out. So one thing I'll say immediately is it's got a very creamy mouthfeel. It's very mouth coating. I think you do get some of that sweet oak characteristic that's there to it. Again, I don't think it's as dominant as the prior batch A122, but there is that nice kind of sweet oak presence that's there to it. There are some nice kind of brown sugars, or like a burnt brown sugar to it. Also on the palate, I'm getting a little bit of like a German chocolate cake. And I guess what I mean by that is you do get a little bit of that, you know, the frosting that's there from the chocolate. I think maybe a little bit of it, if there's like a caramel that's in there as well. There's just something about that is giving me the impression of like when you've had some of that like kind of German chocolate cake a little bit. And if I'm not mistaken, at times there may be a little bit of that coconut that's in there as well, which I was picking up on the nose, like that like coconut cream pie. There's just something about this that's giving off a little bit of a coconut aspect to it. What I will say is, as this bottle has opened up, it has definitely gotten sweeter. So if you open up your bottle and try it right away and maybe you're not as impressed with it, wait 3 weeks or a month, even longer if you can. See what that little bit of time does, you know, with some air. Let it oxidize a little bit. I think it's done wonders for this. Like I said before, early on, I wasn't overly crazy about it, but it's really kind of starting to round out and be a little more similar to batch A122. I think it does have like a nice kind of lingering baking spice. So there's more of that cinnamon, a little bit more of like that nutmeg. I am still picking up that slight herbal or earthy characteristic, so I'll associate that with like maybe a green or a black tea, something along those lines. And I still am getting that leather, maybe a tobacco note. You are still getting or picking up some of that espresso or a freshly roasted coffee bean, something along those lines. Still some dryness to this one. I think this is a little bit more on the drier side than what I remember batch A122 being. I remember A122 being much sweeter, more of this like liquid rickhouse effect. I felt that it had a really nice balance of the sweetness, the complexity, everything that you kind of look for in an Elijah Craig barrel proof, I felt was really in batch A122. You still do pick up on some of those regular caramels, vanillas. You know, that's generally speaking going to be, you know, within these batches. For me, it does lead a little bit more in the leathers, the tobaccos, some sweetness, more of that kind of wood aspect to it. Maybe that little musty or dusty, that kind of soaked barrel wood. There is some of that dark fruit presence, but definitely not as heavy as some have been in the past. I just feel that this one is somehow missing a little bit of something. For me, I don't think it's as good as batch A122, and that's my opinion. I just think this is one you're finding yourself wanting to search or wanting it to be a little bit better than it is. Again, we nitpick the heck out of these things. It's still a very good bourbon. I would still tell anybody, if you're able to find it, buy it. You know, if you want to compare it to prior releases, you know, that's perfectly fine and that's fun to do. But again, I would kind of temper your expectations of this one coming off of A122. I just feel that for whatever reason, the B522 just misses the mark a little bit on it being in that kind of exceptional kind of category. Again, it's a fantastic bourbon and one that's still worthy of purchasing. For me, there's just a little something that's missing on this one. So there you have it. I hope that this helps a little bit. Again, guys, thank you so much for tuning into another one of my reviews. Again, this is the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch B522. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and or become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out the Patreon link in the description below. It's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.